If your team got guaranteed money, tell them call me.
Whoop. Make me say, my. I done been around the world.
Yeah, I was made for this.
Player Performance with J.A. Cavalier.
Welcome back to another episode of Player Performance. This is the college edition Big Ten preview. I'm joined by Guns and Coach Rick Bowe. Look, it seems as the tide has shifted. It used to be SEC or nothing, but not no more. Big Ten can now claim the last two college football national championships. Michigan, of course, in 2023. Ohio State crowned champions. First ever 12-team college football playoff, of course. Don't forget, Oregon also was the number one seed going in. Penn State and Indiana were also participants. Will the conference get 4 playoff teams in 2025? I don't know. Question's going to be answered. It's definitely possible. Big Ten pretty deep this season. We're about to do our Big Ten deep dive right now. Also, my best bet, Coach's best bet. We'll go with Gun's best bet for the conference as well. All you need to know about Big Ten football for 2025-2026 season. Let's go. First up, we have the Fighting Illini of Illinois. Now, I have this team as a contender coming off a 10-win campaign last year. FPI projects them at 6.8 wins. I think that's a joke. This could be a playoff contender. 16 starters returning, 9 on offense, highlighted, of course, by quarterback Luke Altmaier, one of the best players in the country, not just the Big Ten, one of the best players in the country. The entire offensive line returns. We have tight end Tanner Arkin. Both running backs also return. They also added some firepower through the transfer portal this year. Receivers Justin Boyik from Ball State, Hudson Clement from West Virginia. The entire defensive backfield also returns. Their schedule is pretty favorable as well. They do have home games against USC, where I don't know how much stock I'm putting in the Trojans. And, of course, Ohio State. Is it a rebuild year for Ohio State? We'll get to them as well. But this is a team to watch in the Big Ten. I do like their win total over 8.5. Guns, how do you feel about the Illini this year?
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they were that low considering what happened to this team last year. They kind of exceeded expectations going into 2024, and they bring back a lot of that talent, like you said, Jay. Very experienced team. They were 10-3 last year. Their only losses were Penn State, Oregon, and Minnesota. Not bad. 19 returning starters coming back from the Illini on this one. Luke Altmaier's coming back, Caden Fegan, and their top 2 wide receivers on the offensive side. O-line should be very improved as well, experienced. And on the defense side, we should see a better defense out of the Illini too. 9 returning starters coming back, including their top 5 tacklers. And their schedule's favorable, right? They avoid Michigan, Oregon, and PSU. Then they got to go on the road to face Duke, Indiana, Purdue, Washington, Wisconsin. Not bad road games, in my opinion. I think this is on the up and up, and they're going to get it done. By the way, 9-3-1 ATS last season, a team that cashed a lot of tickets. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of the same thing this year.
So just to be correct, you would like their team total over here?
Yeah, I lean that way. It's not an official play, but seeing it, how many games they won 10 last year and it dropped to 8.5. Kind of a suspect on this one. Probably right in a lot of these conditions. Maybe they lose 2 or 3 games and it comes down to that last game. But not my favorite pick on the board. But if I had to lean one way or the other, it's the over on the wins.
Coach, do you see this team contending at all for the Big Ten?
I think they can. I think what you're going to see in the Big Ten is a lot of great quarterback play, and Altmaier is one of them. Him coming back makes their offense better. Like you said, 8 starters. Caden Fegan, like a hidden gem, I think, as a running back. Olin Kreutz's son, I don't know if you guys remember him, played for the Bears, but Josh Kreutz leads the offensive line. All their offensive line starters back, and when you've got that, like, you've got something. Defensively, like Brett Bielema as a head coach, like, he's old school. They're going to run the football and play great defense. Guns, you mentioned a bunch of their starters back. The guy like Xavier Scott, 2-time All Big Ten safety, like, he's legit, probably an NFL player at some point. This is a team that, like you guys mentioned, they don't play Penn State, don't play Oregon. The schedule's favorable, and I would jump all over the win total at 8.5. I mean, I see him getting 9, and again, maybe even 10 wins, just like last year.
So, guys, this is the way I see the Big Ten, and you guys could correct me if I'm wrong. I see this conference more so than some of the other big conferences as very top heavy. I don't think you're going to have too many dark horses. Maybe one or two jump up. I mean, they typically do, right? A quarterback comes in, transfers over, who wasn't expected to do much. A freshman or a redshirt freshman steps up in a big way. However, I think that this is one of the conferences that are more top heavy, and then you have a lot of mid levels, so to speak, type of schools. And there's going to be a lot of fucking bottom feeders in this conference, which we're going to get to. But I definitely think that Illinois has a chance to contend. And I do think that they're going to go over here as well. Next up, Indiana, the Hoosiers. Year one under Coach Kirk Cignetti, huge success. This was pretty much everybody's darling, right? The Cinderella last year. Unfortunately, the clock, of course, did strike 12, and they got their bell rung by Notre Dame. Guns' Notre Dame Fighting Irish, of course. Not a team that's going to recruit well. They're going to have to do it, and they're going to continue to do it through the portal. They do have quarterback Fernando Mendoza coming in, comes over from Cal. 3 returning starters on the offensive line. I expect them to take a huge step back. I know I'm going to catch a lot of slack from that. Middle of the pack at best, in my opinion. Significant roster turnover. Their schedule is going to be difficult. Road trips to Iowa, Oregon, Maryland, and Penn State. Now, this is the one thing and the main thing for me. Everybody's going to see them coming this year. They're not sneaking up on anyone. Coach, where do you see the Hoosiers finishing?
I really don't think that they drop off that much. I've said it before. You guys may know I played for Kurt Cignetti's dad. He is built just like his dad, and he takes a lot of slack because he makes some statements that are pretty wild, but that's just the way he is. And that's the way he coaches, and he expects his team to kind of be like that. You mentioned some guys that he brought in the portal. That Mendoza kid's going to come in, plug and play. He's got to rebuild a defense that he's done through the portal once again. Probably the biggest surprise last year was the Indiana defense. I mean, they were top 10 in just about everything, and I think they get there again. Cignetti said the quote about him adopting the SEC schedule. They're going to get 3 wins right off the bat because they're going to play Kennesaw, Old Dominion, and Indiana State. So there's 3 right there, and that's going to drive them right into the Big Ten schedule. You mentioned they do have some tough road games, and they aren't going to sneak up on anybody, but Kurt Cignetti is going to back down from anyone either. So I don't know that they get to 11 wins, but, I can see them getting to 8 and 9 again. Does that make them a contender? I think it might. I don't think they're going to play for the Big Ten title, but could they sneak back into the playoff? I don't know. Maybe if they get that 10th win, but I don't think they get there. And I'm not sure what their win total is. I didn't look at it, but if it's 8.5, I think they can get to 9 wins.
I don't think they get to 9 this year, and I don't really put much stock in Mendoza either. I mean, granted, you did it at Cal, but that was against a cupcake and a weak schedule. I don't put much stock into quarterbacks like that, especially coming over to the Big Ten where you're going to have to play more defenses and a much better and listen, the one thing about the Big Ten this year is the defensive secondaries are not only better, they're not only stacked at the position and in the secondary, but more so, there's a lot of experience in the secondary in the Big Ten this year. And I think that's going to be trouble for a lot of these young quarterbacks coming into conference. What about you, Guns?
I think there's going to be drop-off. I don't see this team as being a playoff team like last year. I mean, you lose Curtis Rourke, you lose Justin Ellison in the backfield, and you replace it with Fernando Mendoza and Roman Hemby from Maryland. I mean, that's kind of a little bit of a setback here. Their O-line, a lot of replacements there. They do add a starting center from Notre Dame to kind of help get that experience back, but I see there's going to be a drop-off there. You got to remember, like last year, I've been high on Kurt Cignetti for 3 years. I've been pounding the pavement, tell you this guy is the GOAT. He's going to get wins, and he did it at JMU, and he did it at Indiana in year 1. Absolutely turned that program around. However, the defense was basically all JMU guys. Most of those guys are gone right now. They only bring 5 starters back on that defense. They got to replace a lot of guys with transfers. It's going to be a very different dynamic with people that don't know the Kurt Cignetti way on the defensive side of the ball. On the schedule side, they do get a favorable schedule, 58th toughest in the country. They do avoid Michigan and Ohio State, but they have to play Oregon and Penn State on the road, and they have to go play Iowa on the road. Iowa, very tough place to play. If you go to Kinnick, it's not the easiest place to play. So easiest schedule of the year, at least in the beginning of the year. So they get a few favorable wins in ODU, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State. But they get their first challenge against Illinois, and I think that's where the cookie's going to start to crumble there in late September. Not high on this Indiana team. I've been very high on Curt Cignetti for 3 years, but I think that popularity and the public perception has grown that says this is the right coach. This is a great coach. And that's when I say the stock is high, time to sell. Indiana is not a team that I'm going to be back in a lot of situations here in the 2025-2026 season.
And speaking of their schedule, you know what? They're going to be chalking a lot of these games. Just look ahead for you guys. This might be one of those fade teams. Last year you caught them in a lot of spots in a lot of situations as double-digit dogs, right? So of course, them winning those games, winning them outright this year, the shoe's going to be on the other foot where they're laying points, especially laying points at home. And I think you can catch, you'll make a lot more money fading this team. And listen, this is no knock on Cignetti, right? But the problem is where he's coaching. He's coaching at Indiana. It's just not a hotbed of talent. And it's not a place that these young recruits and these 4- and 5-star guys are going to come over to. He's going to have to really pick his bones in the transfer portal, guys who aren't making it other places. And he has, right? And he's definitely done that. But I think that's just going to be the way of the program moving forward. And like Guns just said, the difference is with all those JMU guys coming over to play defense last year, the continuity is now gone. So will the defensive play be as well. So, I mean, I agree. I'm down on this team this year. I think this is going to be more of a fade. And speaking of the Hawkeyes, we're going to head over to Iowa right now. And I'm sure many of those watching want to know if the two of you coordinated your outfits together.
I wore this hat first before the show, and Coach had to mirror me on that one. So
I had the Iowa hat laying around. I said, "Hey,
I just like the color, man. The black with the yellow. It's perfect, man. This is a great hat."
So does that mean Guns is trending right now?
Could be.
Could be. I
look. I have this team middle of the pack at best. I think they're going to be fighting for a bowl contention. For me, it's a 6-6 team. Yeah, they have potential to be they have the potential. They always have potential. But there's too much turnover, both on defense and at running back, which are pretty much the staples of this program, right? And look, I get it. It's hard not to like Kirk Ferentz, the longest tenured head coach in FBS. But new quarterback. I know it's Mark Gronkowski, transferred over from South Dakota State, but how is he going to fare in the Big Ten? This isn't an FCS school. Yes, he led the Jackrabbits to 2 national championships, but he also won the Walton Payton Award. For those of you who don't know, that's the FCS equivalent of the Heisman Trophy. But again, that's FCS. Guns, do you see much going for this? I mean, how do you think this kid's going to fare in the Big Ten? What do you think is in store for this Iowa team this year?
I mean, they got a winner at quarterback, right? A guy that has won national championships, back national championships with South Dakota State and Mark Gronowski. But you look at this team overall. I mean, they lost their heartbeat of their offense, right? The guy that was getting the yards for them, the guy that goes in the touchdown with Caleb Johnson, absolute beast. But Kamari Moulton, he's a guy that we have to look at too. He's got 5.6 yards per carry last year in 2024. Now he's going to get a brunt of the carries. I don't think there's going to be that much of a drop off. My concern is the offensive line. Great run blocking line last year. They do lose 3 starters on that squad. I don't know how the dynamic's going to work with the new people coming in, but it is Iowa. They usually get the big, dumb farm boys to get there and push bodies. The defense only brings back 5 starters, but they got a great defensive coordinator there. So I don't expect, with an Iowa defense, you can always expect the same thing over and over again. They're going to keep the scores very low. And you just hope that the offense can pick up. And when they got this kid from South Dakota State in the realm, you look at the schedule, right? They draw Oregon at home. They got at USC. They got to play Penn State at home, and they got at Nebraska. So there is some dynamics there that they do have the advantage of having key opponents at home and connect. But we got to see what's going to happen here. New quarterback from FCS jumping up into the big boys in the Big Ten. I don't know if that's going to be working out, but Iowa's never had a quarterback before, so they figure out ways to win regardless. I think the line is sharp on the win total, so it's not nothing that I want to be jumping on, because I do think that this is why you say it's top heavy. I think it's actually expanding and getting a little bit bigger. I think there's going to be a few more teams in this conference that are going to really show out, and I can't wait to talk about those as well.
Well, the talent has to sign somewhere, right? It can't all go to the same place. And the problem with the transfer portal, and I've been kicking and screaming about this for the last 2-3 years now, is it's really watering down the product of college football. I would rather have those 10 teams that are really fighting, every year. And the rest of college football, that's fine. You could fit the narrative of, sure, the rich keep getting richer, but I like that idea because I know I'm getting the best brand of football come playoff time. And Guns, I just need you to get one thing straight. It's not big, dumb farm boys. It's country strong.
That's right.
They're country strong. That's what it is. Coach, what do you say about this Iowa team?
The best weapon at Kinnick Stadium is the visiting locker room. When teams go in there, it's painted pink. So back in the day, Hayden Fry was a psychology guy and went in and painted the visiting locker rooms pink. So a lot of teams go in now and they send their equipment staff in early to cover the walls of the visiting locker room. But, getting to Iowa, you're probably right. This is a kind of a middle of the road 6-6. Maybe they get the 7th win in bowl game. But they're an interesting team. Kirk Ferentz has been around a long time. They do things his way, and that means that they're going to run the football. And like Gunn said, they're going to play great defense and see how it turns out. I think the offense could be better than they've been in past years. Remember, a couple years ago, they're 12.
Well, that's what I
15,
wanted to ask you, Coach. Is
and then,
the one thing you can always hold true with Iowa is they're going to run the ball and play defense.
And I think that this year with a new quarterback in Mark Gronowski, who is a dual threat guy, who's actually a big dude too, and he can throw it, he can run it. And you got Tim Lester as the new offensive coordinator. Last year, they averaged about 24, 25 points a game. I think the offense can put up some more points this year. I don't know if they can hang with the big boys, though. So, they do play Penn State. They do play Oregon. Those are going to be tough ones, even at Kinnick Stadium. So, you're probably looking at a 6-7 win team. Maybe they pull out an 8th win somewhere, getting upset. But, again, this is a middle-of-the-road Big Ten team that probably doesn't contend for a Big Ten championship.
Now, you said something that I found interesting. Iowa football, we have always been able to rely on as being a run first and play defense style football team, right?
Yeah.
But they weren't that towards the end of the season last year. Once the new OC took over and they really started to open up the playbook, they weren't so much just run football and play defense. In fact, their defense wasn't great last year. And they lost a lot, turnover this year. So that's what scares me, first and foremost. I just don't see Iowa. Listen, I think they're going to struggle and they're going to claw and scratch to get to their 6th win. That's just the way I see it. A team that won't be hitting 6 wins this year would be the Terps. Of course, Maryland, the total here is at 4.5. Now, they only need to secure 5 wins to hit this over, which should be achievable. You think be achievable, but then, of course, you have to look at the roster. And offense, of course, is returning 3 starters, 2 on the offensive line. And you have a new quarterback coming in from UCLA, transferring Justin Martin, or 4-star freshman Malik Washington. I don't know who's getting the start there, but neither are going to be great. I mean, if you watched UCLA's offense last year, is pretty fucking putrid. The offense is going to, look a little different with the new OC on defense. It's just going to be more of the fucking same. 1 starter returning. Coach, you see anything better for the Terps this year?
Oh God, no. I mean, it's Maryland. If you
Hey, listen, Maryland
football
at one time. Football at one time was a thing. It was a thing. They had the big fat guy, the walrus, roaming the sideline. You know what I mean? It was a thing. Yep, that's right. It was a thing. Give him a little respect. And it wasn't that long ago.
And I'll go back even further.
Isn't that where Boomer Esiason went?
Yeah, Boomer Esiason. They have great quarterbacks. I used to work for Joe Krivak, who was a head coach there years ago when he had Stan Gelbaugh. He had Frank Reich, Boomer Esiason. They won games, but they weren't in the Big Ten, So they're moving.
No, they were in a
Big
better,
Ten.
weren't they? Wait, weren't they in the? They were in the
They
ACC.
were independent.
Right?
They were independent for years, and then they were in the ACC. Yeah, so
correct.
More favorable schedules, and they could get 7-8 wins, but I mean, you're not getting there this year. They could start off with a couple wins. They play FAU, they play Northern Illinois, which they're not. I mean, they're not bad either. But Towson should be a win. That's an.
Well, I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure I understand one thing. You went from shitting on Maryland to shitting on the ACC. I understand that correctly, right? That's what I heard.
No.
First you shat all over Maryland, and then you decided to shit all over ACC, which, by the way, was the second best conference in all football for many years. But go ahead.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, just saying.
Is that Miami coming out of you right now?
That's what it is.
It is, yeah. But competing in the Big Ten, as Maryland, it's just difficult. I don't see how they get to 5 wins. They didn't last year, and I don't expect them to this year. You mentioned QB. Who's it going to be? Well, it's not. Whoever it is not going to be, guys that we've already talked about. Gronowski at Iowa, Altmaier. We're going to get to several others that are, going to be way better than whoever they put on the field. You got one starter on defense. Like, who are they going to stop? So for me, Maryland's is a bottom feeder in the Big Ten.
I actually agree. And you know what? Not for nothing. We're not putting a kid from North Dakota State's name in the ring with Altmaier just yet. What say you, Guns?
South Dakota State.
I mean, there's a reason why there's not a lot of people that came back here. If you actually just go in there and actually look at what Mike Locksley did, a lot of empty promises on the NIL side, which led to his quarterback leaving, his main running back leaving, and basically he's completely lost the locker room. He's trying to get it back. He says a lot of things in the media, saying he'll park his desk out in the locker room if he has to, that kind of thing. He's a guy that is just scrambling to keep his job. And this is not going to be the year for him. We may see, this might be the last year that we see of Mike Locksley. He doesn't have the toughest schedule in the world. He did have 4 wins last season. He did well in non-conference play. But when he went into conference play, he absolutely imploded. 1-8 straight up versus conference opponents, and he only had 1 close loss. He wasn't competing in these games. He was absolutely getting beat by double digits every single time. He doesn't have the toughest schedule in the world. But at the end of the year, mostly road games that he has to deal with. So you're going to have to rely on him to get to the win total with kind of a tough schedule at the end of the year, especially for a Maryland team. 4.5 wins. It's just an uptick up from what he was last year. I don't see him getting to 5. I don't see this team as a bowl team. I see this team as one, like you said, Jay, one of the bottom feeders in the Big Ten. This is a perfect example of one. I'm not high on the Terrapins. I think this goes under the win total or pass.
Yeah, what's the expression? Bubblegum and sticks. That's what this program is being held together by right now. Yeah. Bubblegum.
Yeah. Scotch tape.
All right. Yeah. So now on to a team that many are going to figure is going to contend. Of course, we are talking about the Michigan Wolverines. Their win total here is at 9.5. You can catch the over 9.5 at plus 138 or under 9.5, 170. And that's used for a reason. They're not a top contender. A strong contender, maybe. Playoff hopeful, but not likely. Significant roster turnover. A true freshman at quarterback. That's always going to be a question mark for me, at least. Pretty tough schedule. You have road games at Oklahoma, Nebraska, USC, and Michigan State. 2024 was pretty much a disappointment. They finished just 8-5, and that came on the heels of winning the national championship. Only 3 offensive starters returning, all of which are on the offensive line. You have Bryce Underwood, was one of the nation's top quarterbacks, but there is always going to be growing pains. defensively is not, is not going to be one of those growing pains. They're always amongst the best in the nation. They will lose, their first round pick in Mason Graham, second rounder at cornerback Will Johnson. So you have to replace those guys. But 6 starters do return, and they do get transfers coming over. Trey Williams from Clemson and Damian Payne from Alabama. So of course we expect the defense to be elite as well, as it is pretty much every year. Guns, what do you see this offense doing there in 2025?
I mean, I'm high on Michigan this year. I mean,
are you really?
I'm very high on Michigan, and I actually got the win total early. I don't know if it's at 9.5, it means it pushed up, it steamed up. It's 8.5 is what I got it at. So I think even the sharp syndicates are probably driving this number up. But the quarterback situation was the number one problem with Michigan last year. Everything else was kind of fine. The running backs were fine. The wide receivers, their offensive line, their defense was keeping them in games while they had to stay on the field 75% of the time. And they were still able to get to a bowl game and beat Alabama in a monsoon. So this is a team that is on the uptick. Despite their losses, of course, Mason Graham, he's gone, but the quarterback was the issue. They got their quarterback. They spent the money. I think they spent $4.5 million on this Bryce Underwood guy. He'll be taking over. And they got an insurance policy by getting Mikey Keene from UCF and Fresno State. So if it doesn't work out and he's not ready as a freshman, Underwood, they got Mikey Keene. Mikey Keene can run an offense. He's very good at that. Running backs are fully loaded. They get 2 transfers, including Justin Haynes from Bama. This kid is an absolute beast, up and down running, perfect for the Michigan offense. More experienced offensive line. 7 returning starters from the defensive side, including their top 2 tacklers. They're going to be back. Their linebackers are intact. They hit the portal to fill in the voids. I expect big things from this Michigan defense. And they had one of the toughest schedules in the country. I think they were top 5 last year. Now they get the 54th toughest schedule in the country. They don't see Texas early on this year. No. They get road games at Oklahoma, Nebraska, USC, plus 3 other true road games. And, of course, they get to play their little brother now, we can call him, at Ohio State, because this Michigan team absolutely owns Ohio State, right? You can tell the Buckeye fans to come DM me if they have anything you want straight, all right? I think this Michigan team has got the potential to be a contender for a national championship. Mind you, I'm saying this on the fact that the quarterback situation with Bryce Underwood is going to work immediately. I don't know that for sure. That's the gamble. But as everything else is intact, can't get any worse at quarterback, right? So I think they've set themselves up for success. That's why you're seeing the win total uptick on this one. I got it at 8.5. I think this team wins 10 games.
Yeah, and just remember, nobody in the history of college football was higher on a freshman quarterback than this Michigan team was on Joe Milton.
Oh, there you go. Well, he did all right at Tennessee, right? He did okay.
He played better at Tennessee. I just wanted to bring that out. So let me ask you a question, and this is more of just a strict betting rather than a conference or a Big Ten question. So sitting there with the 8.5, and of course, early season usually means for cupcakes, right? That's when you throw your birthday parties early in the season. So if they skate out to a 2-0, 3-0, do you start to look to buy back on that ticket? So you'll probably catch a win total closer to 10.5, maybe even 11, right? If they come out and start out the season 3-0. I mean, you're not going to catch 11, but let's say, it starts to shoot up a little bit, right? Will you start to look to buy back depending on the price?
Not necessarily. If I pick a win total, I pick it early. I'm just going to ride that ticket out knowing it's going to cash, or at least I feel like I've made the right bet, especially if they go into that early situation. I know that if they can get through the first half of their schedule, the second half of their schedule, other than Ohio State, of course, I think they can kind of breeze through. I think there's situational plays as we get towards the end of the season. I think week 7 at USC is going to be a very tough situation here for Michigan. Mind you, USC has a revenge spot, losing 27-24. That was a big win for Michigan in the big house. They were 4-point road favorites in that situation. And it's a sandwich spot. They got to play Wisconsin at home prior, and then they get a home revenge game after that. So it's a perfect sandwich situation. If anything, I'm not looking at the win total to buy back. I'm looking for situations where I could take advantage of people way too high on Michigan and not high enough on their opponent. So that's kind of just one situation, for example, that I'm going to be looking at in week 7.
Correct. And at least at that point, you'll have a clear picture of who and what Underwood's going to be, right?
Right.
All right, Rick, what do you say about this Michigan team? Of course, they are the team in your home state. Look at you. He switched the hat to the M to Big Blue. So what are you saying about this Michigan squad?
You know, I'm kind of with you. I don't know that they get to 10 wins. You know, schedule-wise, yeah. I mean, it is a little softer because they do avoid Penn State and Oregon. But the question is, it's all about Underwood. You know, is the kid going to pan out? And, you know, being here in Michigan, you know, I saw him play in high school a couple of times. I think he can be legit. I just don't know how quickly he's going to develop. Guns mentioned that they've got some great talent at running back, got some great talent at receiver as well. Samaj Morgan's from right up the road here, West Bloomfield. Frederick Moore we saw play. He's from Missouri. Great receiver with great speed. Defensively, they're going to be fine. Like I said, it's all on Underwood. You know, does he develop? And if he does, I think they're okay. But, you know, are they going to compete for a Big Ten title this season? I don't think they're in the same league. I don't think they're in the same league as Penn State, Oregon, and even Ohio State replacing a bunch of dudes. I don't think they're that good. I think they're in that next tier of teams right below them. So do they get to 10? I don't think they do.
Now, I'm going to say this, and I know people are going to look at me like I'm crazy, but I will say top to bottom roster-wise, I think Michigan is probably more talented than Ohio State is right now. They're dealing with the same thing. They're dealing with turnover at the quarterback spot, right? And it's tough to say that Ohio State, you know, has a guy coming in as talented or as looked at as Underwood is. They don't, right? But they are better now at a lot of other positions where I think Michigan is probably growing into that tier. So I do think Michigan's probably still a year away, and I don't think this is their year. I think this is an under. But hey, listen, if I catch the under 9.5 and Guns hits that over 8.5 and they sit on 9 wins, I think we'll both be sitting there with a smile on our face, right? So we stay here in the state of Michigan. We go to Sparty, Michigan State. Win total here is 5.5. So not big on Sparty. Year 2 under head coach Jonathan Smith. Year 1 was a complete fucking disaster, one to forget. Returning their starting quarterback, 1 on the offensive line. Looks like the rest of the line is going to be all transfers. So, again, they're putting it together with bubblegum. Smith also went to the portal for 4 wide receivers, notably Amari Kelly from Middle Tennessee. I do like him. I that's the one bright side I think coming in for Michigan State is Amari Kelly. 5 starters are going to return on defense, but who gives a shit? It's a defense that gave up 28 points per game. Michigan State is going to absolutely suck again. Coach, what say you?
Yeah, I'm a Jonathan Smith fan. He went to Oregon State, but it did take him about 3 years to get that thing, situated. So I think this is another building year here in East Lansing. You mentioned he brings his quarterback back. I'm not a fan of Aiden Childs. I don't like him. I mean, he's, look at his completion percentage. Like, if you're completing less than 60% of your balls as a FBS quarterback in a Power 4 conference, like, sorry, dude, you're not the real deal. But yeah, I don't know how they get to 5 wins or 6 wins again. I don't know. What were they, 5-7 last year? Like, it ain't happening. Sorry. It's another rebuilding year. And, I would pass on this team. There's far better bets on win totals in the Big Ten here.
Agree. What say you, Guns?
Yeah, I agree. I think the line, at least the win total line, is pretty sharp on this one. It's basically saying is like, can Michigan State make a bowl or they can't make a bowl? That's kind of where the line is. But you look at this team, it's kind of completely built through the transfer portal. The running backs, the defense, the offensive line. Granted, this team was just absolutely awful anyway, so there's only one way to go but up. But you have to trust Aiden Childs. You have to trust those receivers that they have because they got 2 out of their 3 best receivers back. But 4 out of their 5 best top tacklers are gone, filled in the gaps. They have a tough schedule, too. Soft in non-conference, so they can get a few wins there. However, they got road games at USC, Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, and Iowa, all tough places to play. And, of course, they draw Michigan and Penn State as well at home. The line is right on this one, 5.5. It's like basically this team could win 3 or 4 games, or that team could over exceed and get that 6th win for you. But that is not a sweat that I want to do at the end of the season, waiting for that last game to come and be like, can they get 6 wins? I don't think so. This is a game that is a complete pass for me. I'm going to just look for spots to either take Michigan State or maybe fade them in some situations down the road.
Yeah, I would definitely say you get a fade. And when it comes to a team like Michigan State, there is no easy non-conference schedule. Let's roll our boats over to fucking Minnesota here. PJ Fleck, win total here is 6. Yeah, PJ Fleck's been rowing that boat for 8 years now in Minnesota, right? The Gophers are a very respectable 56-39, 6-0 in bowls that he's coached. 8-5 last year, but I see regression. I don't know what you guys see. Starting a redshirt freshman and Drake Lindsey. Now, there are some people who are high on Lindsey. I don't know enough about it, but again, it's a redshirt freshman, so there's going to be, trial and error with a young kid. Expect a heavy dose of the run game. They do return 2 on the offensive line, and of course, they returned Darius Taylor at running back. Taylor did have 986 yards last year, 10 touchdowns. But they do return 6 starters on defense, so that's where they made their bread and butter. They were tough last year, 10th in the nation in scoring. So I think they're going to have to do it again here this year, probably a heavy dose of the run and play defense, and then pick their spots with their young quarterback. Coach, what do you think about this squad?
Yeah, I'm a PJ Fleck fan. I've had kids play for him, and he's a real deal. And the row your boat thing, you can make fun of it or whatever, but I mean, the guy wins, and
it's like chopping wood.
Yeah, but I mean, they're going to win, 7, 8 games every now and then. He had a couple years back where they won 11. This is not one of those years. Because
they also had one of the best running backs in the country in that year, right? A little bit of a difference here.
Yep. Yeah. But you're not going to ride a redshirt freshman quarterback to 10 or 11 wins in the Big Ten, especially when you're a ground and pound. Like, they're going to run the football. They're going to try and jam it down your throat. And the big thing in Minnesota, the defense is legit. So their coordinator's gone because they were so good last year. He got hired away. They're just promoting a guy that's in-house, and I think they'll be very good defensively again. Expect a lot of low-scoring, tight games in the Big Ten. And again, they're probably another 7-8 win team and go to a bowl game and win it again. And, then they recycle and rinse and repeat and keep doing it, and then, hope that they can load up a roster and win 10, 11 games somewhere down the road.
Now, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. However, I do think there's a little bit of regression coming. I think there has to be for some of these teams like Minnesota, teams like Wisconsin, teams like Michigan State, only because you have so many more teams coming into the conference, as of last year. And the top of the Pac-10 or Pac-12, came into this conference. So, everybody can't hit their win totals, right? Everybody's not going to make a bowl. Not everybody's going to get to 6 wins, and it's going to hurt those middle of the pack type teams like Minnesota, right? That's where they're going to probably absorb those wins from, and those are the teams or the type of teams that they're going to steal wins from, right? Because they're going to get that guy that Minnesota wants, so they're going to have to start coming in recruiting into Big Ten land to really be effective and get some of those, as we say PC here, country strong boys, maybe from Middle America. Guns, you like this team at all this year?
I stick with my terminology for the offensive line, and I'm going to stick to it. But yeah, when you look at Minnesota, I think the concern is the quarterback going to be good enough? Limited experience, redshirt freshman, but. I mean, is Minnesota one of those teams that you need to pass the ball? They don't rely on the pass. They're a running team. And you got Darius Taylor. And also you got A.J. Turner from Marshall, who had 8.3 yards per carry for them. So you have 2 good running backs in the backfield, kind of giving a little bit of pressure off of Darius Taylor, though I think he's going to get most of the carries. The wide receiver core completely rebuilt with transfers. They also get this kid, Javon Tracy, kid that's going to be watched. Hopefully that freshman can throw the ball a little bit. But if it is going to get thrown, it's going to be thrown to Tracy. Offensive is kind of rebuilt with transfers, a lot of experience there, but we need to see if this offensive line can gel over time. The defense should be okay. New DC comes in. He's going to be very aggressive. A lot of pressure packages you're going to see from this Minnesota team. That's what they're going to need to do to actually put some pressure on a lot of these Big Ten teams. Lacked the sacks last year, if I remember correctly. Not a tough schedule, though. So, you look at their early schedule, they don't really face anybody good until like late September. But they have a lot of key road games. They draw Ohio State on the road. They do Iowa on the road, Oregon on the road. Fair. Even if those games are losses, you can still get to that win total of 7. Here's the key point on this one. They won 7 games last year. However, they competed in pretty much every game that they had. If you actually look at their 5 losses last year, 4 of those were within 7 or less, and 3 of those were within 3 or less. So usually with teams that have been competing, especially in their losses, and kind of showed some uptick, and as long as a lot of that experience does come back, I think you're looking at an over on the wins here. That's kind of my strategy when I look at a lot of these teams is, one, how did you lose? Not that you lost. And I think this team is on the uptick. Row the boat. Give me a little PJ Fleck love. I think the team goes over the win total here at 7.
Yeah, I think nobody could question PJ Fleck. But a lot of things, that you said, and yes, all of which are true. A lot of these teams that play these close games are these teams that are defensive minded first, right? And Minnesota is always going to be top tier of the conference, But the thing is, with a defensive team, you still got to score points to win. And even the Big Ten is becoming more offensive minded as of late. So we'll see what happens with that. So we head along to Nebraska. The Huskers, their win total right now is at 7.5. This team was pretty much a fucking enigma. We thought the Cornhuskers were back in 2024. They skated out to a 5-1 start on the season, but nope. Then they lost 4 straight, finished 7-6 on the season. This is year 3, the third year of the Matt Rule era. And if you guys remember, this is the year that he turned it around at Baylor. Is he going to duplicate that, Guns?
Not only that, he turned Temple around in year 3 too. So he's got patterns. Yes. So I'm very high on this team. And I go back to that Bugs Bunny meme where he's holding the gun. He goes, "Forgive me, Lord. I'm back on my bullshit." I was like, this team I backed the last 2 years. I'm going to do it once again, falling right back into the trap. I think this is going to be a good year for this Nebraska team. They get Dylan Raiola back. He's in year 2 in the offense. He should be much better. They did upgrade the wide receiver core. They actually moved their quarterback, Harburg, made him a tight end. I don't know why. I didn't know he was that big, but now he's a tight end. And also they added to Kentucky's #1 wide receiver in Dane Key. So look out for the passing game in Nebraska. Also, this is going to be Dana Holgerson's first full year of being the offensive coordinator. He's had some success. He's very knowledgeable in the offensive perspective. The defense has got a lot of turnover. There's going to be a new DC and only 5 returning starters, so that is a little bit of a concern as far as the experience goes. But their schedule is very favorable. They got winnable road games. They got Maryland, Minnesota, UCLA, Penn State may be the tough one. And then their home games are 2 non-P5 schools, an FCS opponent, Michigan State, Iowa, Michigan, Northwestern, and USC. 6 wins last year, but they went 1-5 at the second half of the year. And of course, they did win their bowl game. And you said it with Matt Rule, year 3. He's got a pattern of winning 10+ games in both of those situations with Temple and Baylor. Then the win total is 7.5 here. And I legitimately think this team will be 7-1 by week 8. That's how favorable their schedule is. I think they'll find they just have to find a win at USC, at UCLA, Penn State, or Iowa at home. That will get you over the win total. So I think this is a very good bet. I'm only taking it one way. Nebraska over 7.5 wins is the play.
Coach, you agree?
I do. I like Raiola. We actually had him in our facility over the summer. His dad just played.
Wait, before we go any further, what was the controversy with him in the offseason? Did he want to leave, or was there something stewing or brewing about Raiola?
Yeah, I didn't look too much into that, and I didn't hear anything from him regarding that. So I'm not real clear as to what was going on, but He's staying at Nebraska.
But you heard it, right? I'm not
I did
making
hear
up
it.
news here,
Yeah,
right?
no, I did hear
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
but I don't,
All
and
right.
that could have been the rumor mill. Who knows? But he's legit. I mean, he's damn good. And Guns, I'm glad you mentioned Temple. You know, I mean, Matt Rule, third year at Temple, God, they were good, man. And that's a program that, you know, they were horrible for years, and he turned that thing around. Goes to Baylor, does the same thing. Now it's year 3 at Nebraska. You mentioned Heinrich Harburg. Like, they love him at Nebraska, and that dude's a great athlete. And yes, he is very big. He'll be a nice tight end for them. Defensively, that's going to be the question. What do they do? New DC, you know, do they stop teams? I don't know. They're going to have to. I think they score a ton of points. Schedule, like you said, they could be 7-1. I mean, Akron, Houston Christian, come on. Like, they're going to win some games early. The 7.5, I think that's easy. The 7.5, you know, they could win 9, maybe they get 10. Like you mentioned, the toughest game's probably at Penn State. The game with Iowa, like, that's the thing. You know, the Nebraska-Iowa rivalry is a huge deal, and that game is at home this year. So that, you know, that could give them their 10th win. So yeah, I'm all over the over on their win total here, and definitely will be picking and choosing some spots with Nebraska throughout the season.
10 wins.
Oh, sorry.
I think
that rivalry that you talked about with Iowa is pretty interesting because it was decided by 3 points the last 2 years. So under Rule, he's so hungry to win that one. That was a game that I marked here. Week 14 against Iowa, you get him at home. If you're not taking Nebraska, you're just wasting your money. That's all I'll say.
Agree. I think I see big things for Nebraska, but Coach, 10 wins. I don't know. You know, you're talking about Big Ten contention, right? You're talking about a Big Ten title mark, because I don't think anybody's escaping the Big Ten this year. I think maybe Penn State has a shot. Outside of that, I don't know that anybody else has a real true chance of leaving this conference undefeated. But so 10 wins may win the conference this year. At least that's my take.
Yeah.
We head to Northwestern. Northwestern. You know what their win total set at? 3.5. 3.5. Now, they did, of course, go over this last year. They won 4 games, 2 of which were in conference. The offense was horrible, 130th in total offense, 128th in scoring, 111th in passing. New quarterback at the helm, but let's be honest, it's offense or nothing for this team, right? Like Northwestern, you need to outscore teams to win games. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it because at these marks, it's just not going to get there. And I do get it on defense. You know, Saka is an NFL prospect. But outside of that, Northwestern's not going to have, a huge defensive presence. And it looks like they're not going to be doing too much on offense this year. You know, it's scary to think at 3.5, I would still lean under. Coach, what about you?
You know what Northwestern will be real good at? Going to class.
Losing?
Yeah, they're going to go to class, and they're going to get great grades, and they're going to have some academic all Big Ten kids, but they're going to get their ass kicked on a football field. I mean, the offense is a shit show. I don't care who you bring in at quarterback. You know, Preston Stone was good at SMU, but sorry, like I think quarterbacks go to die at Northwestern. You know, one of our kids went there, and he transferred out.
Is he okay? Or did he die?
He's probably in a psych ward somewhere. But or
no. Listen, one thing you know for sure: a kid gets into Northwestern, he's going to be okay. You know what I mean? That kid's going to be okay in life.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
Forget the football field. That kid's going to be okay in life. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, he'll take care of business. And like they say, we'll be pumping his gas someday, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, you mentioned 3.5, the win total. Like, yeah, I probably would lean under. I mean, how are you going to get 4 wins? You know, I don't see it. You know, even
I don't see them
non-conference. They're open up with Tulane, which Tulane's a very good Group 5 team, man. So I don't know how you get to 4 wins. There's better things to look at here in the Big Ten other than trying to figure out whether Northwestern's going to get 4 or not.
Agree. No. Northwestern is the team that the good teams schedule for a non-conference. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Northwestern is the Alabama of the world's non-conference schedule, where we say,
Right.
but they have an easy non-conference schedule. Guns, what do you think about this squad?
Well, I'll tell you something that's positive about this is like, if you're a Northwestern player and you do break your leg, there's probably a surgeon on the sidelines in uniform that can fix your leg. And then there's probably a lawyer on that team that can sue the guy that broke your leg. That's what's good about Northwestern. There's going to be some very, high IQ brains that are going to be ready to help you out in this matter. But looking at the team's outlook, I do think the quarterback situation is probably the positive one. I do like Preston Stone. I think he did a great job at SMU. However, he did lose his job, but he hasn't really had a start or snaps in 2023. Who knows if he's going to be able to get the rust off on that one. The wide receiver core is going to be a big question. They lost their top 3 wide receivers, if that even mattered at Northwestern. 23rd toughest schedule in the country. They face Oregon, at Penn State, at Nebraska, at USC, Michigan, Minnesota, and at Illinois. Absolutely juggernaut in conference play. 4 wins last year, only 1 close loss. So every time they didn't even compete in the losses that they had. And the total, their win total is 3.5, 4. You said 3.5. That's where it's at right now. It's probably spot on. You're probably looking at a 3 to 4 win team this season. I say one thing though with Northwestern. If it does happen this year, I'm not saying it's going to happen a lot. If they're ever a short dog, they're 9-1 ATS in those situations. I mean, 3 points or less. If they're playing another remedial team and you see them as a 2 to 3 point dog, I think they are an absolute take in those situations. They have success. They love to have that chip on their shoulder to win those games. However, it's just not going to be a great year. This is not a bowl team, folks. This is a 3 to 4 win team.
Yeah, and your guys also have to remember, or at least think about, this series of events that it would take for Northwestern to only be catching 3. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, the team on the other side.
It happened once last year and they cashed, okay? It did happen. You got to look for it. It's going to happen. It may happen once.
It may happen. And the one good thing about Stone coming in from SMU is, he for damn sure threw the ball. So, and a lot.
Yes.
So, you know what? And that's when Northwestern was at its best, when they were competitive, is when they were throwing the ball all over the field. So, I mean, hey, you never know. They have the quarterback, in the system. Not much talent around them, but hey, there's that. So now we head over to the state of Ohio, and the best team in Ohio, the best professional team in Ohio, that would, of course, be the Buckeyes, the Ohio State Buckeyes. The win total here is at 10.5. I mean, personally, I can only look to the over. Top contender for sure. Ohio State, pinnacle of Big Ten projections right now. ESPN's FPI predicting them at 10.4 wins, despite replacing both coordinators, their starting quarterback and key players in the run and pass rush. Look, remember this. The Buckeyes, they don't rebuild. They reload. Jeremiah Smith is back, maybe the best player in college football. Also, Cornell Tate. NFL talent on the offensive line. Defense loses a lot and should be, interesting to see. But Matt Patricia, flopping around on the sidelines as their new defensive coordinator. Key games, of course, are going to be Texas and Penn State. But you know what? Look, you have to figure they're going to be favored in most games, probably big favorites in most games. I don't know, how you leapfrog, the reigning national champions. Do you think this team gets it done here, Guns?
I was kind of shocked about the win total. I got to be honest with you. Knowing that they lost so much, they lost their running back core, they lost their quarterback, and they lost a lot of key guys to the NFL. However, the books are weighing this as 10.5. Now, to me, is this an overinflation because they are the national champion, or is this actually accurate? Knowing they're going with a quarterback that is, there's a lot of high hopes. He was a top 5-star recruit for Bama, and Julian saying he is now at Ohio State, so there is high hopes for him. I think the wide receiver core is the best in the country. I mean, you got Jeremiah Smith, Cornell Tate, and they got a top tight end from Purdue as well to help with that passing. So I think what they're going to be looking at strategically is passing the ball a lot. What Julian saying is what they're saying here. And when you have a guy as elite as Jeremiah Smith, you better damn be passing the ball. The O-line is going to be veteran talent, but they lost 3 starters on that side. And they lost their coordinators on both sides, the offense and the defensive side of the ball. Their defensive coordinator hightailed it and went to Penn State. They're going with Brian Hartline at the OC and Matt Patricia on defense. I mean, I don't know. I don't think these are high names as far as offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, in my opinion. These are guys that don't really have that college coaching experience. Maybe Hartline does, but definitely not Matt Patricia. But the very tough schedule. They got to play Texas in week 1, and Texas has that pound of flesh. They want that game very badly, even though they got to go play in the shoe. I think Texas, we've already seen them in the big house go and win against Michigan. I think they are absolutely capable to go beat this Ohio State team in week 1. And then they got at Illinois. They got back-to-back road games at Wisconsin and Illinois. Those are not the easiest places to play. And, of course, they got Penn State at home, but Penn State, if they're a top 10 team, Penn State always folds like a cheap suit. And then you got, of course, your daddy, Michigan, at the end of the year on the road in the big house. This is going to be very tough to get to 10.5 wins. I don't see this as a 10.5 win team. I don't know why, but I just don't. We'll have to see. Books weigh it at 10.5. I'm going to pass on this one because something smells fishy.
When I did my projections, I had them losing week 1. I did have them losing week 1 because it's hard to trust a quarterback in his first game up against a team like Texas, right? Like, so I marked it as a loss. And even though Archie Manning, first time starter, but it's still fucking Archie Manning. The kid's, maybe one of the best prospects in the last decade at quarterback, right? So I did mark them up with a big fat red X to start the season. But I honestly, other than Penn State, I don't see anybody else beating them. And I do think that they can lose that Penn State game. See, that's the one thing that was up in the air for me. But, this year, like every year, we're sitting here at the start of the season thinking the world of Penn State. And then by the end of the year, Penn State finds a way to let you down, right? So that's the one thing that scares me about this team and the win total. But I do think they get over. I think they get to 11 wins. I have them losing week 1 and them winning out. Coach, what do you say?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, like you mentioned, when you started, Ohio State just rebuilds. Like, this is a program that is so good that you can lose your quarterback to the NFL, and then you break in a 5-star guy who is going to be a legit FBS Power 4 quarterback. Guns, you also mentioned the tight end. The tight end's Max Clare from Purdue. Like, he could be the best tight end in the country. He'll be an NFL guy. The receiver core is tremendous. I don't see much of a drop off offensively. They're gonna average their 35 points a game. Defensively, you mentioned Patricia. There's guys that are they're great head coaches, and some guys can't be great head coaches. Matt Patricia was a failure as a head coach in the NFL. The guy can coach. Like, he's a defensive mind who, whether he coached in college before or not, I think he can be successful with the group of, the kids that he has, the talent that he has defensively. I think they can be very good because, like I said, they rebuild. They don't rebuild, they just reload. The Texas game, that's going to be a tough one. It is at home. Win or lose, they can still win out. We'll talk about Penn State in a moment, but they could easily go over this 10.5 win total. They're going to be in the mix for the Big Ten title, and they're going to obviously they're in the talk with our college football playoff. So I agree with Jay. I like the over on the team total, and of course Ohio State for a Big Ten championship. I think they'll play for it. And they're going to be in the playoff mix as well.
Yeah, and I think the big question mark, of course, is going to be quarterback, right? But that's obviously, with many teams in college football, with transfers and guys starting for the first time, you never really know. And even some of the upperclassmen that start at sophomore or in their sophomore season or in their junior season, you really never know what you're going to get until you have these guys in games, set in as your starter. So yeah, I mean, week one did definitely struggle. And listen, this entire season, truth be told, this entire season may end up being a struggle for Ohio State if the quarterback situation is not right. Now, I do like Hartline. I do like the signing there, and a guy who returns to Ohio State, right? Like, it's always good to get that blood that played there, that lived there, that fought there, that bled there. Patricia, on the other hand, I'm not a Patricia guy, so who the fuck knows? I think he's sucked everywhere he's been. He hasn't done anything worth a shit since he's been, since he was blowing Belichick. So that's my vision on it.
That's when he was a good defensive coordinator. He had the best defensive mind as his head coach. I bet Belichick just says, "You're running this," and
you were basically his coffee getter. You were his coffee getter with a nice title. You know what I'm saying? That's like making the hottest girl in the room, your personal assistant. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Right? Like basically that's what it is. All right, we're going to head on over Oregon. Team, this is also set at 10.5, which I do think this is high. I am actually on the under here. I do not have this as a top contender. I don't think they contend for the Big Ten. I definitely don't think they get into the playoffs here. All the Ducks have done, though, since Dan Lanning has taken over, is actually win. They're 35-6. Big Ten Conference Championship last year, and of course, they did earn the top seed in the playoff. However, this year's Ducks team, only returns 2 offensive starters, 4 on defense. Yet Oregon is still favorite or one of the favorites to capture, the conference here. I don't see it. I do like transfer Dante Moore, but Dylan Gabriel, remember one thing. The dude was actually a professional college quarterback. UCF, Oklahoma, Oregon, no quarterback in college football has ever been better traveled than fucking Dylan Gabriel. They do return huge, so they have some talent. He rushed for over 1,400 yards at Tulane, so they bring him in through the transfer portal. Tight end, they upgrade their wide receiver, Evan Stewart, freshman wide receiver Moore, he's supposed to be the next big thing, right? Like, that's all I'm hearing about this kid Moore, is he's supposed to be the next big thing. Defense, of course, is the real question. Defensive tackle Derek Harmon, linebacker Jeffrey Bassa, cornerback Muhammad, all gone. So, I mean, quite a bit of big shoes to replace there. Coach, how are they replacing them?
Yeah, well, I don't know how we're going to replace him, but obviously, Lanning has gone to the portal to get some key dudes. But you mentioned Dante Moore. He's actually another Michigan guy. I don't know if you guys know that, but when he was a freshman, the school I was at, we actually played them, and I was like, wow, this kid's pretty good. But I don't know how he's going to do at Oregon. It is a drop off from Dylan Gabriel. So do they get to 10.5? Do they get over that? I don't think so. I think this is a year where Lanning's going to have to rebuild a little bit. And maybe a year or two down the road, they're going to be back in contention for the Big Ten and the national championship. I just don't see it this year. Moore might play well and come out and tear everybody a new ass. But that said, they're still going to have to play at Penn State. They're going to play at Iowa, and I don't think they get to the 11 wins this year.
There's one thing that I could say, right? Like, even about Dylan Gabriel, I never viewed the guy as a natty style quarterback, right? I never thought he had what it was going to take to win a national championship. Even when they opened up and at Oklahoma, they were coming out guns blazing, had beat Texas, and then they stumbled down the stretch, right? And even at Oregon, they were beating everybody. I mean, they barely got by the Buckeyes in the first meeting. You never viewed Dylan Gabriel as that guy who's going to toss the rock all over the field, but he was a winner and he was a professional college quarterback, right? Like, he was so well seasoned, and he's been pretty much everywhere in all of these different style of plays, offensive sets, and he just continued to get the job done. But he's not a national championship caliber guy. I think the Ducks are going to drop off significantly, and I don't really care. Look, that's the one thing that it's been the narrative of this show so far, right? Is the young and the transferring in quarterbacks. Like, very few teams in this conference, have consistency. So, I mean, are we really outthinking ourselves? Is it really just better off to go with what we know, with what we trust? And that would obviously lead us to Penn State or lead us to Illinois, because those are probably, at least right now, and we don't know where Underwood's going to be. We don't know what these freshmen are going to be. As we move on into the season, they can end up being the next great thing, right? They can be the next Peyton Manning. Who the fuck knows?
Right.
But you know what? We have the devil we know, at Illinois and Penn State. Are we really overthinking this? Are these the guys? Is this where the conference is going to end up, in one of the laps of these two? I don't know. I mean, that's the question that, for Guns, first tell us what you feel about this Oregon team and then answer that question.
I mean, if there's a team that's going to drop off from the highest of highs last year to the lowest of lows, I think this is going to be the team that does it. Dylan Gabriel was just an exceptional weapon. However, there was other exceptional weapons on that offense that are not there anymore. Jordan James is gone. Tez Johnson is gone. Trayshawn Holden's gone. Some key turnover where they have to basically go to the transfer portal to kind of build that. Their offensive line, same type of condition, all rebuilt with solid transfers. But where's the gel? Is there any gel in this one? The defense was kind of a problem for them last year, but they do have a lot of returning starters, especially on the defensive line. And they went and got some transfers to make everything solid. So maybe there's going to be an uptick on the defensive side. But with Dante Moore, you only got 1 year sample size of him at UCLA. Didn't really when you saw him play, I wasn't really enamored by this guy. I don't know if the transition to playing at Oregon kind of boosts a quarterback in a lot of conditions, like Dylan Gabriel had and a lot of other quarterbacks that went to Oregon did. So we'll have to see. Time will tell on this one. But their schedule is going to be absolutely tough this year. Road trip to Penn State, Iowa, Washington. They also have to play Oklahoma State. If you know the history of Oregon, they have not played the Big 12 teams out of conference very well historically. So that might be a bad spot for them in week 2. Not to say that Oklahoma State is going to be this juggernaut, but like I said, they play Big 12 teams kind of bad. Also, at Penn State is an absolute revenge spot for Penn State, losing in the Big 10 championship. They're going to want that pound of flesh. But is Franklin going to get over the hump and beat a good team? We shall see. I don't know if this Oregon team is going to be enough for me to be jumping all over on this year. I think this team is, if there's going to be a drop-off in any team in this conference, it's going to be the Oregon Ducks.
Agree. Actually, this is probably my best bet. The Ducks under 10.5. I'll say it right now. This is probably my best bet. Ducks under 10.5. To think that they're going to walk through the Big Ten and lose one game, that's ridiculous. I mean, honestly, I don't see it. This is something that I would suggest. I already have, but I suggest you guys lock in the Ducks under 10.5. This may be closer to a 4-loss team rather than a 10-win team. So, I mean, for me, it would just be the Ducks under the 10.5. So we head into Pennsylvania, the great state of Pennsylvania. Of course, if we're heading into Pennsylvania, we could only be talking about one team, and that is not the Pitt Panthers. That, of course, would be the Penn State Nittany Lions. And look, total here is at 10.5, and I actually am on the over here. I actually think this is the year Penn State probably outduels or overcomes Ohio State. Look, I feel that, this pretty much every year. We get excited for Penn State every season, preseason, and every year we leave unsatisfied. Is this team a little bit different? They do return their quarterback, one of the nation's best. Still, we all expect better from Aller, right? Like every year I expected more from this kid. When this kid came in, I thought he was the next coming. They do return both running backs, and both running backs are elite. This is a true two-headed monster in Allen and, of course, Nick Singleton. Both can be special. Am I being hard on Penn State? They did finish last year 13-3. They did win 2 games in the playoffs. And still, I get the impression that Franklin right now is on the hot seat. Guns, you agree?
He's got to be. He's got to beat a top 10 team. That's his biggest problem, his major issue. As good as his teams have been, when he gets in that big game, when everything's on the line, there's really 2 teams in the conference he can't beat. He can't beat Ohio State, and he can't beat Michigan. But this offense is as good as it's going to get for Franklin. Drew Aller's back. They got Nick Singleton back, Katron Allen, 2,000 yards rushers. They do lose Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren was a dynamic weapon for him as a tight end. He kind of did everything. They also lose their top 2 receivers, wide receivers. But they went to the transfer portal. They got two solid weapons, one from USC, one from Syracuse. I think they're going to be fine in that situation. Their defense does lose Abdul Carter, an elite pass rusher for them and kind of just dynamic all over the field. They do lose their top tackler in Jalen Reed, but they get 7 starters back. So I think they're going to get back into that tough defense because they get the Ohio State defensive coordinator to come over to boost that defense up. And I think that's going to be something that's going to work for them, for Franklin. Their schedule isn't that tough. They get Oregon off a bye, which is going to be huge. They get them at home as well. Their road games are Iowa and Ohio State. Those are going to be the toughest games for them. They have revenge on Oregon. They have revenge on Ohio State. The one problem with them is if you look at the history, Penn State has just been absolutely terrible as a dog. So we'll have to look at where the line adjustments are going to be in a lot of these situations. And Franklin's just going to have to get over the hump. This is put up or shut up time. This is one of the better teams that you've had since your tenure at Penn State. So we'll have to see. I'm not going to be taking a win total on this one because Penn State has not shown me that they can be an elite program. But this is one of the better teams you're going to see out of Franklin.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I mean, fair enough. They haven't beat anybody. They continue to lose Ohio State. They continue to lose to Michigan. I think this year both of those may change. Or at least they split out. I mean, you can get by if you're splitting out. As long as you beat the shit out of Michigan. If you lose to Ohio State because Ohio State is really that good, I can see it. But, you can't lose to both. You definitely can't. Coach, what do you think about their win total? What do you think about this Nittany Lion team?
Well, you're mentioning Franklin being on the hot seat. So, growing up in PA, I'm tuned into Penn State. Franklin's on the hot seat like every single day in Pennsylvania. Like people were MFing him every day, even after a win, So yeah.
Well, I mean, but your time it was who was before Joe Pa?
Rip Engel.
There you go.
Rip
That was
Engel,
your coach, right?
Rip Engel back in the day, wearing the black shoes.
Father time.
Yeah. Anyway, I used to have, Paterno used to call me every year, recruiting my kids. It was awesome. I used to work his camps. I love Penn State football.
Easy, coach. Easy, coach. Easy, coach.
I
Gus and I both immediately our minds went the wrong place.
Yeah, I know they did. But, I met that guy too. Fruitcake. But anyway.
Shit.
The best pickup for Penn State in the offseason is the defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles. I think they don't miss a beat defensively. And this is usually an elite defense from year to year. I think they're going to be good again offensively. Jay mentioned, you got Allard back. You got two 1,000-yard running backs back, 3 starters in the O-line. The Guns mentioned the receiver from Syracuse, Trevor Pena. That's probably the second best pickup for Penn State in the offseason. He's legit. The schedule, Penn State doesn't play Michigan. So they're they're going on the road to play at Ohio State. That's going to be the big one. Hey, can Franklin get a win against a top 10 team? Blah, 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 blah. But even if he doesn't, this is a team that can still go over 10.5 wins. And I think they're playing for another Big Ten title. They're going to the playoff. And I think they go deep in that as well. Give me the over 10.5 on the wins, and we'll see you at the national championship game. Giddy up.
Aller, no more excuses, buddy. This is a guy who has the talent, has the arm. This is what a number 1 overall draft pick looks like in the NFL. He just has to put it together. This is your year. You have no excuses. You have all the weapons in the world. You have a program and you have a system that fits everything you do. Matter of fact, it's been more tailored to you over the last couple of years. No more fucking excuses. You have to get it done, and this has to be the season for it. All right, let's move on.
Agreed.
We head back to the state of Indiana, where we have the little brothers, the little choo-choo train, Purdue. And their win total, of course, is at 3.5 because nobody expects anything from this Purdue team. And look at Coach putting on. Coach, you do have some players in the program, right? So you're pretty much a friend of the program. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so you guys know from last year, Ryan Brown, QB that I coached since he was 14 years old. He actually transferred to North Carolina. Bill Belichick called him up and said, "Hey, I think you're the best quarterback in the portal." Goes to North Carolina and plays in the spring game, and that day, North Carolina's back in the portal looking for a QB. So the new head coach, yeah,
All Coach
whatever,
Rick's coaching.
probably.
Belichick sounds like a guy who bought your max bet and lost.
Yeah. Oh well. But Ryan ends up transferring back to Purdue. Barry Odom loves him. Actually gave him more money, more NIL money, which is awesome. But Ryan's one kid. There's actually a kid on the offensive line, one of our guys too. Was a transfer from an NAIA school here in Michigan. His name's got a real weird name, Bakeen Kolai. So look for him as well. The only thing that you don't look for is a lot of wins from Purdue. Sorry, I like Ryan and I like our O lineman, but Purdue getting over 3.5 wins, I don't know how they're going to get there. We're talking about Ball State in the opener. It's like, oh man, can he get to Ball State? I think they can beat Ball State. They can definitely beat FCS Southern Illinois in week 2. But after that, oh boy,
Could you imagine that shit? Could you imagine that shit, though? Transferring over to North Carolina, you play in the spring game, and then you get the fucking boot pretty much. Like, that's just crazy. That's crazy.
And that's modern college football now.
It's gross. Like, you know what? Like, it's gross. I couldn't imagine this. I couldn't imagine a quarterback not being the guy for 3 years, right? Or not being at that school for 3 years, minimum. Yep. It's crazy to me. I don't like where it's headed. We're sending the wrong message to our kids. If you can't succeed somewhere, no problem. Just give up and go somewhere else. That's the message that we're sending our kids. Guns, what do you have to say about this Purdue squad?
Not a whole lot. I mean, there's only one way to go but up. At least they went and got a good head coach. Barry Odom is just great. Turned that UNLV program around. It's just going to take some time to get this team back in order. He's got a new OC as well, coming over from Missouri. But the defense was so bad last year. The 470 yards per game, 40 points per game given up to opponents this year. They're back to the drawing board, just trying to rebuild this defense from scratch. And they got a tough schedule to boot. 13th toughest in the country. They got road games at Notre Dame, at Minnesota, at Michigan, Washington. They also draw USC, Illinois, and Ohio State for that matter. This team was piecemealed together with 20-plus transfers and a revolving door of players that left and came back. Post-spring was an absolute abysmal time for Barry Odom in year one. One win last year from this team, and it was an FCS school. So am I thinking of high hopes for this Purdue team? I think it's going to take some time for Barry Odom to even get this team back into bowl eligibility. So, yeah, this is a team I'm not high on, probably the worst team, not only the Big Ten, but maybe in college football.
It's also kind of crazy that this kid would want to transfer with Barry Odom coming in. I mean, he plays such a fun system and such a quarterback-friendly system. Why you would want to leave that to go to a guy like Belichick, who you would have to imagine at the height of his college career is going to be very vanilla. You know what I mean? Like, so I can't see, Belichick as being one of those style of guys who's just going to start opening up the playbook, So I don't get it. Coach, you may need to put a call into the kid.
So when Ryan transferred to UNC, Odom wasn't the head coach yet. So that wasn't in play. So he didn't know who was coming in. So he decided he wanted to get out after, they let Walters go. So
makes perfect sense. But I think we all agree it's going to be Purdue under 3.5. We head to Rutgers. The total here, the team total is set at 5.5. In his second stint now at Rutgers, we have Greg Schiano. He is slowly building a winner there. I mean, he's doing it slow, at a snail's pace, slow. Scarlet Knights did go 7-6. Schiano's teams are typically built around defense. Last year's unit was so-so, allowing 27 points per game. Only 2 starters on the defensive side return. Offense should be a little bit better. 8 starters are back on the offensive side. Guns, what do you think about this Scarlet Knights squad?
I mean, they're going to be run oriented again. I mean, the quarterback does come back, but they do lose their main source of offense in Kyle Monagai. He's going to get replaced by Antoine Raymond. He had 4.6 yards per carry, so maybe there's promise there that he can probably take the load and actually carry that offense. And their O-line should be solid. 5 starters back. They do add some transfers for depth, so I think the run, at least the run blocking should be okay. New defensive coordinator comes in, Rob Smith. He's been the defensive coordinator there before. He's got 7 starters back to work with. Tough schedule for them. Faces Iowa, Oregon, at Illinois, at Ohio State, and Penn State. So it's going to be a tough schedule. And when you know about this Rutgers team, last year they started very strong, right? 4-0 right off the get, and then they lose their next 4. They did win their 3 out of their next 4, made the bowl game, lost to Kansas State. Schedule's going to be a lot tougher this year with this team, and of course losing a key player like Monagai. I think this is going to be a team that really, from a win total perspective, you're just going to be asking yourself, is this a bowl team or if it's not a bowl team?
And they have to keep a tetanus shot ready on the sidelines at all time, of course, in Rutgers. What is it? Aren't they like the highest colleges in STDs? Of course they are. They're in the armpit of America, New Jersey. Anyway, Coach, what do you have to say about this team?
Yeah, well, New Jersey maybe falls into the Atlantic Ocean since it is the armpit. I don't know. But,
it smells like it already. It's up there. Wow. It's definitely up there.
That's bad. Anyway, win total wise, I mean, like Gunn said, it's a coin flip. Do they get to 6? I don't know. The schedule is definitely difficult. Like, especially at the end of the season, if you're looking for a 6th win, and you got to go at Ohio State and then play Penn State in your season finale. Like, you're not getting that game at Illinois, Oregon at home. I mean, that's going to be a tough one. They have to go at Washington. We'll talk about them later. But defensively, it's basically an overhaul of the defense. I don't know if they're going to be able to stop people. Offensively, I think they'll be okay. A lot of starters return, like Guns mentioned, QB's back. There'll be some continuity there. The offensive coordinator, I'll mention him, Kirk Shiraka, for a PA guy that we know pretty well. For me, I mean, this just doesn't enthuse me at all. Trying to figure out whether Rutgers is going to win, 5 or 6 games. It's a hard pass. I don't think they get there just because their schedule's too tough.
I don't disagree. But Shiano has famously been a vulture when it comes to college football. They seem to pick the bones and pick up wins of teams that have pretty much mailed it in towards the end of the season. And they start to pick up some wins, in those games against Nebraska as Nebraska's fallen out of contention, against Illinois as Illinois is fallen out of contention, Maryland as they're falling out of contention. Rutgers has historically, or Shiano, I should say, has historically picked up wins off of those teams falling out of contention when they're playing like their 3rd string quarterback at that point. So we'll see what happens. I do think they get bowl eligible. I don't know if they go over their win total though. We head to California, and this is the one conference that you really do question the traveling, right? And the traveling spot is probably tougher for this conference than any other conference in all of college football, because now we head to California. UCLA, their win total right now is at 5.5. Now, this one's going to be pretty interesting, at least for a talking about point, because it's all about transfer quarterback. Of course, we're talking about the electric Tennessee freshman, Nico Lamalaeva, whatever. If I said that right, I probably butchered his name, but I did the best I could. But with all the news, more so on how and why he left the program at Tennessee, is it going to be more of a distraction than it is excitement? They did finish 5-7 last year. Deshaun Foster does come in, first year as head coach. He was, of course, a UCLA legend. But, look, it feels like a reach for me by hiring Foster in the first place. I think they just wanted a guy there, a guy who was a friend of the program, so to speak. I'm not really sure. I mean, look, obviously Nico's going to be an upgraded quarterback quarterback. You do have 3 starters returning on the offensive line. Most of their receivers, but they weren't great in the first fucking place. Defensively, they're going to take a hit. 3 returning starters. So I don't think you're going to get much defense out of this squad. I do think you're going to see offense. There's going to be some excitement around him with Nico at home. Coach, what do you think? You think they exceed their win total? You think they get up and over?
No, I don't. Actually, going back to last year, I thought Deshaun Foster might get fired. They come out of the gate. He had to win at Hawaii, but then they'd lost 5 in a row, but he pulled it together at the end of the season to get 5 wins. But I don't think they get to 6 this year. Yeah, the offense, it might be fun to watch. I'm Oliva, he's legit. I don't like all the garbage surrounding him. You mentioned that. Is that going to be a distraction? Could be. I don't know. But defensively is where UCLA falls apart. I just can't see them stopping many people. They're going to play Penn State, Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington. Obviously the crosstown rivalry game with USC. How you getting 6 wins? I don't see it.
But for teams that have difficulty in recruiting or recruiting at a high level, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes your best option is to pick a side of the ball and focus on it. And I think UCLA is definitely doing that on the offensive end. I think, they're just going to look at it as we're just going to outscore people, or at least try to. Guns, what say you?
I think you're on the right path as far as their strategy is pretty much, let's see how many points we can score and see if we can win some games. If they're getting Nico in there, coming over from Tennessee. By the way, his backup is his brother, Madden, if you want a little bit of a tidbit there. So they got the 2 brothers, 1-2, in the quarterback role. The wide receiver core loses their top 3 wide receivers. They lost their top 2 rushers and their entire offensive line. So this is just completely overhauled, built from scratch. They also get a new OC that comes over from Indiana, Tino Sunseri. He's been a guy that's been working with coach over at Indiana, Stignetti. So I think, maybe that offense is looking to go on the uptick. But like I said, everybody's just new, trying to build as a team. It's going to take some time for everything to gel. Then you got to look at the schedule on this one. 8th toughest schedule in the country for UCLA. You got Utah to start off the year. Granted, whether Utah is good or not, still a tough game to go into week 1. Then you got Penn State, you got at Indiana, you got Nebraska, at Ohio State, and at USC. Not easy games. Won 5 games last year. Books rate them as a 5.5 win total on this one. They do have a better QB, but not a lot of experience on both sides of the football. I'm just not going to be high on them, even though they got Nico, even though they got a good OC. Just not a team I'm going to be back in this elite Big Ten. It's going to be one of those situations. You're going to be looking at that last game, and you're going to be asking yourself, is UCLA enough to get to a bowl, or are they just going to be watching it on TV during Christmas time?
Now, I will say this, I agree with most of what you guys have said, but I do think that they find a way to get themselves to 6, right? Like, just being able to outscore teams in this conference, they should be able to get to 6. It's not going to be easy. I'm not going to say that it's not going to be difficult and it's not going to be an uphill battle, but I do think Nico is talented enough, because remember, he's probably better with his legs than he is with his arm, right? So you know what? And he's going to need to be, so I do think that he could probably carry them to 6 wins. USC, the Trojans, or I should say the once mighty Trojans. Lincoln Riley was brought in. He was supposed to be the savior of Trojan football. He's been anything but. Pretty much a huge disappointment. He started off 11-3 in his first season, and he followed that up with 8-5 and 7-6. They have talent, both offense and defense. Their defense last year was top 50. This is one of those teams that I really have no true read on. Guns, maybe you can help me out here. What do you see for the Trojans this year?
I think this is a stock we need to buy. If you're going the lowest of the low, we're going to be taking USC on the over on their win total on this one. Change at quarterback. Miller Moss is gone. He went to the transfer portal. He's going to be starting somewhere else. They got Jaden Maivea. He looked very good, at least at the end of the season. And they lose their running back in Woody Marks. Woody Marks was a great weapon for them as well. But they go to the transfer portal. They get Eli Sanders from New Mexico. And if you watch a lot of non-P5 or G5 schools like I do, That New Mexico team was elite on the offensive side of the ball, and Eli Sanders was a big part of that. So I can't wait to see him run in the Trojan uniform. The wide receiver core is going to be their strength to get their top 2 wide receivers back. The good tight ends and a transfer portal addition from Boise State to boot. The defense is going to be year 2 under this UCLA defensive coordinator that came over last year, had to change that defense around because they were so bad, but their numbers got so great in year 1, just having him there. They're going to be even better in year 2 because they got 4 returning starters and some new transfers. Now, look at this record for UCLA last year. USC from last year, 7-6. They had a lot of close losses, but mind you, they had the 3rd toughest schedule in the country last year. They lost to Penn State in overtime. They lost to Michigan by 3. They lost to Minnesota by 7, Maryland by 1, Washington by 5, and they were very close to Notre Dame at the end of the year and had the chance to get the lead, but 2 pick sixes at the end killed them. So 20th toughest schedule, so they get an easier schedule. They have some tough road games with Illinois, Notre Dame, Nebraska, and Oregon. But I think this team can get at least 8 wins. So I think this team is on the up and up. I think the defense is going to be a lot better. I think that offense is going to gel with Jaden back there under center. And I think the transfers that they got are going to be exceptional and get production on the offensive side. Going to be a very tough team to beat. I think this goes over the total at 7.5.
Now, didn't they have a string where it was over a 3 or 4 game span where they blew double-digit leads in like 2 of 3 games or something like that? I know one of that was Maryland, I believe, where they were up big on Maryland and ended up losing the game outright. And the game before that, I also believe,
Penn State.
yeah, I mean, I vividly remember that, and I was actually on Maryland in that game, and Maryland ended up pulling that one out and winning outright. Coach, what do you see for the Trojans this year?
Yeah, I'm like you. The true read. I don't know. The one thing I do know is that if Lincoln Riley doesn't put up, like, he's getting fired. I think he's got to do it this year. Or he's out. You mentioned that stretch of games that they had. They lost to Maryland. It was Penn State that they lost to in overtime the game before, and then the game before that they lost at Minnesota. So 3-game stretch there where they could have picked up three wins and a really good one over Penn State, but they didn't. I'm not sold on Jaden Maivia. I don't know. He did well, late last season. I'd have to see him play a little bit more. Defensively, I think is where USC will be better. And they actually have another one of our kids, Desmond Stevens, will start at one of their linebackers. He was a 6'2", 200-pound. He was a corner as a freshman here at Clarkston High School up the road. We told his dad, don't be surprised when they put him in a 3-point stance and he's rushing the quarterback. He's like 250 pounds now, and he can run. He's a great athlete. I think defensively they're going to be solid. I know Gunja, I know you like him getting to 8 wins. I'm not sold on it. Maybe you could convince me down the road. I think they can win their first 4 games though, and that would give them a nice boost heading into the meat of their Big Ten schedule. They've got Michigan at home. They'll play at Notre Dame in that rivalry game. For now, I'm going to wait and see how they perform in the first part of the season. And like I said, if Lincoln Riley doesn't get them to at least 8 or more wins, I think he might be shown the door at the end of the season.
Well, the one thing I disagree with is I don't think Lincoln Riley goes anywhere because, really, who are you going to get to replace him? It would have to be a big name, somebody coming over from the NFL to replace him, because he still does recruit, right? That's the one thing with Lincoln Riley is he still recruits talent and he still recruits the skill set very well. So, really, what are you replacing him with? What's better? It's different with a guy like James Franklin because James Franklin, nobody gives a shit about, right? He's a good football coach. But you know what? Penn State, fills that gap with somebody better tomorrow, right? And is USC really an exciting job anymore? Other than where it is USC really looked at as the upper echelon of college football anymore? Because they haven't been, good. Never forget special. They haven't been good in a long, long time, right? Even Caleb Williams, it's like where quarterbacks go to die. I was surprised and shocked that he was drafted number 1 after he couldn't succeed in the Pac-12. Like if you can't excel in the Pac-12, you have no business being drafted number 1 overall. At least that's my opinion, because they don't believe in defense in what was the Pac-12. So I don't know. I just don't see USC as that as the Trojans we grew up on, right? Like I think it's just a completely different narrative. It's completely different surroundings in that building. It's just I don't see any excitement around that program, and I don't know what it's going to take for them to build the excitement. But I just don't see it, But 8 wins is more than achievable because, like you said, if they get out early, they start off with like 4 wins, beating up a couple cupcakes. Then what does it take? It takes a 500 season the rest of the way to get yourself to 8 wins. So I can see that. I definitely do see that. We head to Washington, another former Pac-12 team. Win total here is at over 8.5. Total is at 7.5 is where I have this total at. And I'm actually on the under this. I think it's going to be another tough year for Washington. Standards, are going down. Brutal season last year, 6-7. But there's a little hype surrounding the Huskies right now, mostly surrounding their quarterback. He did shine in the bowl last year. We were talking about quarterback Damon Williams Jr. He was 26 for 32 with 374 yards, 4 touchdowns. Also rushed for 48 yards and another score. But look, guys, that was a one-off. Look, I get it. You need something to build on. You need some sort of excitement to build the program around. So there is that. But one starter returns on the offensive line, which for me is the most concerning. It all starts on the offensive line. Someone has to open up the holes for guys like Jonah Coleman, receivers back, tight end also back. So there's going to be some weapons for him. I'm not big on this team. I didn't like what I saw from them last year. It seems like the program just went completely downhill since Penix left. Defense may be a struggle as well. They only have one starter returning on the defensive end. Coach, what do you see from this team?
It's one of those middle of the pack deals again. It's they're a 6-win team. They're, are they a 6-win team or are they a 5-win team? They're right in there in that mix of, hey, we could turn the corner or we might not. I do know this, Jed Fish, head coach, this will be his second year there. He was at Arizona prior and, turned them around in a year or two. So, there's that factor as well. I don't see how they get to, 8 wins. I mean, that's 7.5. Geez, I don't know how you get to 8, especially with the lack of returning players. And sure, you can go to the portal and all that, but you're playing Big Ten. You're playing a Big Ten schedule where you've got Ohio State. You're going to play at Michigan. You're going to play Illinois, and you're going to, at the end of the season, you got Oregon coming to town. So for me, I don't know how you get to 8 here. I will mention the QB though, like he is legit. I mentioned way back, there's some really good quarterbacks in the Big Ten. He's going to be one of them, another dual threat guy who can throw it and run it. He'll be exciting to watch, but I don't think he's going to get them to 8 wins.
The biggest mistake Pac-12 teams made was joining the Big Ten. Of all the conferences to choose, they chose a conference in Middle America where it's cold, right? These kids from California, which is your recruiting, like this is your hotbed. This is where you pluck from. This is where you farm from. They don't want to go play fucking football in cold weather in the middle of October in November. They don't want to go play football in Ohio or Michigan. And it's going to be very difficult for these teams to recruit in Middle America, in Ohio, in Michigan. So they're always going to be at a disadvantage in this conference. I thought it was probably the worst move I've seen in conference football was this conference joining the Big Ten. Why didn't they look to join the ACC? Or why didn't they look to convert with the Big 12, where it's also hot and you're getting into states like Texas or you're getting into states like Florida where the style of play matches where you're playing? I think it was the biggest mistake. I think they're at a huge disadvantage. I think the only advantage they have is that these teams from Middle America have to travel, back and forth to the West Coast to play them. Outside of that, I think it was a huge, huge, huge mistake. And now you're going to Middle America to play some of these big boys. As we've been saying, these country strong boys. You know what? It just doesn't add up for me. Okay, Guns, what do you think about this squad? What do you think about this team? Do you think it's just another bad year for the Washington Huskies?
I mean, I lean the under, and I say that because I already got a sample size of what Jedd Fisch can do on the road versus what he can do at home, right? Desmond Williams going to be taking over under center. We talked about Jonah Coleman. Their wide receiver core should be better considering they lost so much from the year prior. But like I said, they weren't very strong last year. Their O-line should be a little bit better. 7 guys back on the defensive side, so they're getting experience back. But the schedule is what's got concern for me. This is Jedd Fisch in year 2 now. They did well at home last year. They were 6-0 at home. However, they were 0-6 on the road. They have 5 true road games this year, but their home games are going to be very tough. They got to go play Ohio State, Oregon, Illinois this year, all at home. That's going to be what's going to be the deciding factor in a lot of these cases. And there's teams that are going to want their pound of flesh, especially like Michigan. If you remember, Michigan lost to Washington at Washington, kind of a sloppy, ugly game, and they get him in the big house this year. And of course, Washington just bad on the road, like I said.
Yeah, but I don't think Michigan's crying about that. Michigan got a national championship out of this team, so I think that they're more than okay with that one, right?
I took Washington, so I was really happy about that one. That was a pound of flesh game. It was it was a good cash. However, this situation is going to be a little bit different. They're going to win road games to get over this total, and from what I've seen from last year, they couldn't even win one. So, not a team I'm going to be backing in any condition on this one. I lean towards the under on their wins.
Yeah, I agree. It looks like we're all in lockstep with that. Let's move on to the big W, right? That's Wisconsin. Their team total here is set at 5.5, and honestly, I can give a shit. But speaking of Wisconsin, we do have to note, a big fat congratulations to our very own Luke Shuey. He and Mrs. Propmaster welcomed their 3rd baby boy into the world. So, Luke, congrats, my man. Congrats. Couldn't have happened to better people. Love seeing it. So as far as this Wisconsin team, Guns, what do you think about their total here? 5.5. You think the Badgers get to 6?
I mean, at what point is Luke Fickell going to fight for his job? Is this?
Well, no. Here's a better question. Who gets the 6 wins first, Luke Shuey or Wisconsin?
That's an easy one.
It's got to be heavily juiced towards Luke Shuey, I think, on that one. A lot of plus money on Luke Fickell. The offense, though, a little bit of an overhaul. Of course, they took Maryland's quarterback, Billy Edwards. He's going to be taking over the reins on that one. Their wide receiver core is going to have some changes as well. They're going with a redshirt freshman, Dylan Jones. I think that's going to be the guy that's going to take a brunt of the carries. We'll have to see. Wisconsin kind of known for a factory of like making running backs. So let's see if that comes to fruition here this year. New OC, they got Jeff Grimes, who was the OC at BYU and Baylor in 2021. So maybe we're going to see bigger and better things from the offense. It needed to do something. 8 returning starters on the defensive side of the ball, so they should be better in that situation. However, that schedule that Wisconsin has, the worst of the worst, the toughest schedule in the country. Get this: Bama, Michigan, Oregon, Indiana, Minnesota, all on the road. And they have to face Ohio State, and they get Iowa, and they get Illinois at home. I mean, they got the gauntlet of all gauntlets this year, and you set the tone at a 5.5 wins. They only won 5 games last year with lackluster teams, and out of those 7 losses, only 1 was by a possession or less. Granted, there was injuries. There's a lot of moving parts that kind of ruined that team's season. I honestly see this team as a 3 to 4 win team based on the schedule alone.
I think they're going to be bad.
The under has validity. I think the under wins is the only way I take this team.
Yeah, I think this team is going to be bad. And they were almost laughable towards the end of the season last year. Like, you actually felt bad for a team that's always been so prestigious, right? Like, one thing you always got out of certain teams and teams like Wisconsin, you always got the fight, right? You always seen them fight. You seen them fight to the end, even when they weren't very good. But it just seems like all that fight was just like pulled out of their bodies last year. Coach, you agree with Guns on this one?
Yeah, 100%. And, the thing that killed Wisconsin really was hiring Phil Longo as your offensive coordinator. And I know Phil Longo, he coached at Slippery Rock way back in the day, but he's an air raid guy. So, you mentioned Luke Fickell fighting for his job. Well, I think he wanted to do something different offensively or something, to kind of jumpstart the offense.
Well, they saw it work with the Packers.
Yeah, whatever. But, yeah, you can't just – it was completely against the identity of Wisconsin football. Like, we're going to get a bunch of 6'8", 350 dudes. We're going to pull fucking three guys on, we're going to run counter, gap. And, we're just going to plow you. We're going to get a big running back, and we're going to jam it down your throat. Then we're going to play defense. And they weren't doing that. They're trying to throw the ball around, playing air raid football. And that's not Wisconsin. Like, that's not what they're all about. So, Luke Fickell fighting for his job, well, he is this year because you're going to see an offense that's much more in tune with Wisconsin football. The problem is, they're just not going to beat anybody because their schedule's too tough. You mentioned them all. Count them off, list them: Alabama, Ohio State, etc. I don't see how you get to 6 wins.
Yeah, and another thing is when you continuously change from system to system, you leave the cupboard bare for whoever's coming in. Because you have to build around your system. And if you're talking about a smaller system, more of an air raid, the guys in there are just too small to run, that style of football where we're just going to run the ball 3 times and punt until our guy breaks 1 for 60. Right. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we're going to do. Then we're going to play defense. True. Then we're going to run the ball and punt. Then we're going to run the ball and punt, and we're going to play field position. And then eventually our guys are going to break enough runs to win the football game. And we're just going to punish you until we get to the fourth quarter. But, you can't do that when you're going from air raid to run. So, again, yeah, probably a couple of years, away. But one thing that the transfer portal has offered, and look, don't get me wrong, I am completely against the transfer portal. I don't like how it's run. I think there needs to be more rules set in place for it. It just seems like we're teaching these kids the wrong message. You know what? You go someplace, you don't start, you don't like it there, you don't like the weather, you don't like the color of the uniform, you can't get no ass. All of a sudden, you know what? That's it. You know what? I'm going to go somewhere else. Yeah, I don't like it. It's just not for me. I think you need to teach these kids better than that. You're watering down the sport. And also, more importantly, you're watering it down at the next level as well. Like, that's probably, for me at least, the worst part of that.
3-point spread winners posted daily on ylose.com. That's the letter Y, LOSC.com.
All right, guys, that's it for us here today. He is Ryan the Guns Garland, and he, of course, is Coach Rick Bowe. I am J.A. Cavalier, your favorite capper's favorite capper. This has been Player Performance. We just broke down 18 teams in the Big Ten. We're going to be back here, probably do the SEC next, right, guys? We'll do the SEC next?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll do the SEC next, the 2 best conference in college football. We've just done the Big Ten, and now we'll go to the SEC. We'll see you guys back here for that. Guns, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just can't wait for college football season. Go check me out, Why Lose Guns on Telegram. Great deals on the college football package and also the NFL package, man. I've been absolutely killing 112 units over the last 4 years in college football. It is my sport. I own it. I dominate it. And I can't wait to get into the college football season.
Yeah, and guys, very, very important. These are 2 of the greatest minds when it comes to handicapping and college football. So this is why I've actually deferred most of the show to them and asked their opinions more than my own. And if you can listen to anybody's opinions on the show, listen to theirs, honestly. Coach, final thoughts.
Yeah, you know me. I grew up with it. I love the sport, played it, coached it. I can't get enough of it. And Guns mentioned, his success in capping college football. Both NFL and college football last year, my winning percentage is right around 60. I think it was just 59 point something percent. I put a lot of time and effort in it because I just love it. I look for things that, your other guys just don't find. So I'm looking forward to a great season. Guns, what's the countdown? I think you said 29 days or something till first game.
It is 25 days to week 0. 25.
Okay, 25. Yeah, so I can't wait till it gets here. It's going to be a great season, going to be great for the Why Lose community. Ride us through the season and cash tickets left and right.
Yeah, and that's another thing, just so you guys know. The two of them and I will be doing a show for the entire season, probably either Thursday nights or Friday nights for the entire college football season. So we'll be here guiding you through it as a week to week. We just wanted to make sure we guys gave you a look ahead and how we're seeing each conference and what we think is in store for each team to get you guys ready leading up to college football. And also it helps us hit the ground running as well, right? The more you talk these things out, the more you talk about these teams, the more you listen, to others talk about these teams, the more you learn and the more information you gather for the upcoming season. All right, we'll see you guys back here probably later in this week or next week when we break down the SEC. But until then, remember that with your heads, not above them.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Suffocation, no breathing. Don't give a fuck if I cut my own.